Hi everyone, it's Lisa. Thank you for joining me today. In today's video, I'm going to be making 3 cards. I'm going to be using the Spellbinders November 2021 small die of the month and the clear stamp of the month. So here's a look at the small die of the month. You get all of these dies. You have a slimline. It's almost like a border die, and it's this die here. And these you can use on the edge of your slimline card. You can also use them on a regular A2 size or 5x7 card. And they are all these little circles, and you can either cut it into your card, or you can cut it out on one side, or you can cut it out on the other side, or both sides, depending on where you use these edge dies. And I'll be working with this today, so you'll kind of get an idea of how to use that. You also get these ornament dies, so great for Christmas cards. You get 3 ornament dies with their shadows, and these 2 that have the holes in the middle, you can actually drop in the smaller die into the center to create a more of a decorative design. And these are the dies that you can drop into the center of those 2 ornaments on the left. You also get these dies. There's 3 ornament toppers, and then you get this die, which is to hang the ornaments. So that's the small die of the month, and here's a look at the clear stamp of the month. And it looks like this. They are border stamps. There's a snowflake, there are presents, there's also some ornaments, and then there are several sentiments. You can say Noel, Merry Christmas, a gift for you, and Happy Holidays. And then if you belong to the Clear Stamp and Die of the Month Club, you get the dies that will actually cut out these presents. So if you didn't want to use this particular stamp as a border die, you can just cut out these individual presents. And what's nice about this particular one is you can use this for birthday cards as well. So the snowflake one you can use for winter cards, Christmas cards, then you have the ornaments for Christmas cards, and then the gifts you can use year round. And then here's a die that you can use to cut out the border. So if you wanted to put it on the edge of a card and then cut it out, you can use this die to do that as well. So I'm going to start out by working with the small die of the month, and I have a slimline card base that measures 8.5 by 3.5 inches. And I'm going to take that circle edge die and put it on the edge of the front of the slimline card base. And I want to cut away the bottom part of the cardstock, so the cardstock underneath the die. So I put that edge die right underneath those circles, and then I'm just going to tape this down and run it through my die cutting machine. So you can see that it cuts the bottom edge of that cardstock away. And now if you were to put a piece of colored cardstock underneath, that color would show through all of those circles. I'm going to go ahead and stamp out a sentiment on the front. So I'm going to use my MISTI to do this. So I'm just going to hold this cardstock down with some magnets. And the stamp set that I'm going to be using is from the Spellbinders All Aboard Christmas kit, and I previously did a video making several cards with that kit. So I'm just using the clear stamp set out of that. So I'm just positioning my stamp on the card where I want it to be placed. And once I have the stamp in the right position, I'll go ahead and close the door on my MISTI, and it will grab that stamp, and then I will ink that up with some black ink, and then I will stamp it down onto the cardstock. So I cut a piece of red cardstock that measures 8.5 inches by 3 7/16 inches. That's just under 3.5. And I'm going to glue that down on the top flap of that card. So you can see that I'm just putting glue on the decorative side, on the inside decorative side, because I'm going to glue that down. And that red cardstock, as I said, it's just under 3.5 inches. You want to make sure that it is just under that, or else it might not fit because of that score in the cardstock. So once I have glue on that, I will fold down the card front and press that down really well, And now I have the red showing underneath all of those circles. Next, I used the ornament die and I die cut some gold mirror cardstock, and I'm going to turn all of these circles into a Christmas ornament by just adding that ornament topper to all of these circles. Now, I do want to emphasize that all of these circles can definitely be used on a card all year round, because you don't have to use the ornament toppers on these circles. You can use this actual die as an edge on any of your cards all year round. But I am turning it into a Christmas card by just adding these little ornament toppers to make it look like these are little ornaments at the bottom of the card. So I'm bringing in some ephemera from the Spellbinders All Aboard Christmas kit, and I'm just going to add some ephemera there to the top right hand corner just to add a little bit more something to this card. Next, I'm going to take some Nuvo glitter drops, and the color I'm using is Sunlit Meadow, and I'm just going to add a drop to the center of all of these ornaments. And that will complete this card. So moving on, I'm going to use this die set for another card. This time it's going to be an A2 size card, so you can see that you definitely can use it on an A2 size card. You just use part of the die. I have this pattern paper from the Spellbinders Christmas Traditions paper pad, and I'm going to cut it out of the bottom of this pattern paper. So I did it just like I did the previous card by putting that outside border die right underneath it. And I'll tape that down, and then I'll run that through my die cut machine. Now that pattern paper, I did cut it down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, but you'll see here in just a minute that I am going to trim it down a little bit more. So I'm just going to snip away the bottom. We don't need that piece. And next I'm going to take a piece of green cardstock and I'm going to die cut the circle die again, only this time I'm using both outside edges because I want to cut it out of the cardstock on both sides. So I put both of those outside edges around the circles, and then I ran that through my die cutting machine, and this is what you get. So you get an actual edge that's cut out of the cardstock. So you can see here after I cut that edge out of the pattern paper, it has this little point here on the side, and I'm not really crazy about that, so I'm actually going to just snip it off right where the circle ends. So even though that paper was cut down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, it's now just a little bit smaller than 4 1/8. So I'm going to take this green strip and I'm just going to add it right on top of the circles on the pattern paper. And I'm just lining up the dots after I put the glue on it, and once the dots are lined up I will press that down and then I'll just snip off the right edge. And then I'm going to add that layer to a piece of red pattern paper from the same paper pad. Again, that's the Christmas Traditions paper pad, and the red paper measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to be incorporating the Christmas ornaments on this card. So I have these two dies which I'm going to layer together, and then I'm going to drop in the circle, so that's going to run through my die cut machine just like that, and it's going to give me this blue ornament. So you can see all the detail on that. And then I'm going to take just the shadow layer and I'm going to die cut a lighter blue piece of cardstock, and that's going to layer right underneath. So here's what that will look like once they're glued together. Alright, so the next ornament, I die cut the shadow layer out of a darker pink, and then I'm going to layer these three together to get this detailed ornament, and that's out of a lighter pink, and then I'm going to adhere those two pieces together. And here's what that one will look like. And then for the last ornament, I layer these two dies together to get the detailed piece out of a lighter green cardstock, and then I take just the shadow layer and cut the dark green cardstock, and then I'll layer those two pieces together. Next, I used this die to die cut a piece of gold mirror cardstock. This is what the ornaments will be hanging from. So I'm going to go ahead and snip off the piece to size, and I'm going to add some glue on the back and then tuck it behind the ornament and adhere it to the card. And I will do that for all 3 ornaments. So while I do that, I do want to mention, if you do subscribe to Spellbinders Card Kit Club, the month of November, the shipments are going to be very late. So what Spellbinders is doing is they are not charging anybody for the card kit for the month of November. And once it does arrive, they will be selling it a la carte on their website for anyone who wants to purchase it. So if you are a member of their value club, they will deduct the cost from your November club's payment. And that's all that I know about that. So if you have any questions, I do encourage you to reach out to Spellbinders directly. So you saw that I went ahead and added the caps for the ornaments in some gold mirror cardstock. I stamped out the word Noel, that is from the stamp of the month, and I'm adding some gold gems to the center of all of the ornaments. Next, I'll add that to the front of an A2 size card base. An A2 size card base measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And that's going to complete this card. And my last card is going to be using the clear stamp and die of the month. I'm starting out with an A2 size card base in the landscape position. It means that it measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so I'm actually using the 5 1/2 inch side, and I'm using the front of the card to place my die just about an inch from the bottom of the card front. And I ran that through my die cutting machine, and you can see that it cuts off the bottom edge of that card front. So I'm just going to fold it at the score line. So now I'm going to be doing some stamping. So I'm actually going to take the whole card base, lay it flat in my MISTI, hold it down there with some magnets, and I'm going to be using the snowflake border in the stamp set, and I'm going to be stamping out different color snowflakes. I'm going to have 4 different color snowflake borders using different variations of purple ink, and the ink I'm using is from scrapbook.com. And I love their inks because they group them in like sets of 4 with different colors from lightest to darkest and shades of medium in between. So I'm using their purple set, and I will have the colors listed down in the description box below in case you're interested. But what I did is I put the edge of the snowflake on the edge of the card, stamped it up in my darkest purple, and then I cleaned my stamp. And then I repositioned the snowflake right above the darkest purple, and then stamped it out with the next shade of purple, and then cleaned my stamp. And here I'm doing it again with my next lightest shade, just positioning it where I want it to be stamped, inking it up with another lighter shade of purple, and then stamping it down. Always make sure that you clean your stamp in between. And then I'm going to reposition it for the last time, and this is going to be my lightest shade of purple, and I'm going to ink that up and stamp it down. And because it was so light, I did have to ink it up just a few times just so that I can actually see it there on the card front. And now I'm just placing the Happy Holidays stamp, and these sentiment stamps, they're curved, so they'll actually fit within the curves of the stamp. And then I'm going to ink that up with a gray ink, and I will stamp that down as well. And next I'm going to put a little bit of a border, a silver border on the edge of that card. So I used the border die that came with my matching dies, die cut some silver mirror cardstock, and then I'm going to do it again after I run it through my die cut machine. Now I'm just going to put that die slightly above the curve and die cut that a second time and get this small little border. And I'm going to place that on the inside of the card. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue there at the top of that border, and then it's going to follow along the curve in that card front. And I do need to mention that when you are cutting that silver cardstock, please make sure that it's at least 5 1/2 inches wide. And then I just snipped off the excess there that's extending beyond the edge. So I'm going to place a piece of pattern paper on the inside. This pattern paper measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. It's actually slightly smaller than 4 1/4 inches just so that it will fit on the inside of that card. That paper is from the Spellbinders October Card Kit. They also sell that paper pad separately on their website, and I will have a link down below in the description box. If you have any paper extending on the edge, just use your scissors and snip it off. And then to finish off this card, I'm just going in my stash, taking some silver gems and adding them to some of the snowflakes on the front of the card, as well as between the sentiment Happy Holidays. And that's going to complete this card. So if you're interested in any of these products, I will have links in the description box below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for more card making tutorials. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.